failed 3-time title challenger and the man who ran from Ian Machado Gary like his life depended on it, Colby Covington, has crawled out from whatever rock he's been hiding under to do an interview with Submissive Radio. And I am not being overdramatic. I am not being hyperbolic when I say this was the most embarrassing, humiliating, delusional Colby Covington interview I have seen to date. And we're going to look at a bunch of different clips. And by the way, I'll just say this right out ahead. Every accusation by Colby is basically a confession. We'll get to that throughout this interview. And also, the 3 guys that he really, really honed in on and called out in this interview. I mean, really, there was like 5 or 6 call outs. He ducked everyone under the sun as well, but he made some call outs in this interview. Were the most embarrassing call outs I have ever seen in my entire life. And it's like Colby doesn't realize the WWE gimmick has failed him. He doesn't realize the entirety of the MMA community is finally starting to turn on him. He doesn't realize he's fading into irrelevancy. Or maybe he does. And he's just grasping and trying to get headlines. And he's only getting 10,000 views on Submissive Radio nowadays. And he's desperately trying to claw his way back into relevancy. But let's check it out. There's a bunch to check out. I can't wait till you guys see these call outs. I'm going to save the best for last. But also, the way he talks about Islam Makhachev in this interview is absolutely insane. We have a lot to check out. The first thing I want to do, this is the very, very first question, first exchange in this interview. To be honest, I felt sad when I heard this. I genuinely felt sad when I heard this. It's like he's living in another reality. And I know he probably knows this isn't true, but it's so sad that he thinks this is even funny. This whole character, I'm a big star. And also the question from Submissive Radio here was completely embarrassing, but we'll get to that. I understand why they're doing it. I will link this full interview down in the description. I encourage you to go check it out and support Submissive Radio. And also maybe leave a hate comment about Colby for the algorithm for him as well. I would greatly appreciate it. They do these interviews. I use clips from him. Go support their channel. Let's check it out. Let's check out the first question, which I'm going to forgive.
Now we wait on bated breath to see who's next. Colby Chaos Covington. What a time to be a welterweight in the UFC, right, my friend?
What a time to be the best welterweight in the UFC and the biggest star in the sport.
First off, we wait on bated breath. Nobody's waiting on bated breath, okay? Nobody wants to see Colby ever fight again. Don't ever do this hand gesture again if I can get it to come up on screen. Apparently not. Don't ever do this again. But the reason I wanted to highlight this is not to shit on him. I believe his name is Dennis. I don't want to shit on him here. I know it sounds like I am. But the reason I wanted to highlight this is because it annoyed me. But I was immediately relieved and I forgave him. Look at this shirt he's rocking. Look at the shirt he's got the Creed halftime show shirt on. So at this point, I would give this guy a kidney. If I needed to donate some blood, if he needed a loan. I mean, this guy's basically my brother right now. I mean, he's got the Creed halftime shirt on. I forgive anything that he says in this interview, and I understand why he does it. He's friends with Colby. He's playing along with the character. But I just find it so annoying how dumb Colby is. And then you have media members playing into the delusion, even though I do understand why. So I'm not trying to give him too much flack here. And also I can't. I mean, greatest halftime show ever. One Last Breath. I mean, absolute banger. Michael Chandler had that on repeat when Conor McGregor left him at the altar. But let's jump ahead, okay? That's enough about the Creed shirt. Shout out Creed. Let's jump ahead where he's asked about Leon Edwards losing this weekend, and listen to what he has to say here.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't paying attention, to be honest, brother. I was at a big event at Mar-a-Lago all weekend. I was hanging out with my boy Michael Irvin. Was in New York City with the Tate brothers, Tristan and Andrew Tate. So, I'm doing high-flying stuff, brother. I'm wheeling and dealing. I'm jet-setting. I'm Rolex wearing. I'm doing big things. I don't got time to pay attention to the jobbers in my division.
He's hanging out with the Tate brothers. He's hanging out at Mar-a-Lago. He's jet-setting. Colby is starting to give me vibes of a special needs person that you play along with to make them happy. That's the vibes that he's giving me now. I mean, this is pathetic. It is humiliating. I think he's even embarrassed of himself, to be quite honest. Like I don't understand how he doesn't realize this is such a bad look. It wasn't funny to begin with when you were beating up 40-year-old legends on 3-fight losing streaks. But now that you don't win fights, you don't even show up to fight, you don't even attempt when you do show up to fight, and now you're like, yeah, man, I'm hanging out with the Tate brothers. If you've been watching my channel for the last couple years, you know I've been saying Colby wants to make the transition into like right-wing grifter talking head, and that is exactly what he's trying to do now. I don't think that's going to be a successful endeavor either. Let's jump ahead. But he didn't watch the fight apparently. Let's jump ahead. He talks a little bit of crap about Leon here. Let's take a listen.
I kind of thought that after I fought Leon, the motivation wasn't there anymore. I mean, I could tell in the fight, like, I broke my foot immediately, and he did nothing. He didn't try and come after me. He just, tried to point Coast to a decision. So
every accusation is a confession. Oh, I could tell Leon didn't have the motivation. And then he throws in, oh, I broke my foot. He didn't do nothing in the fight. Sound familiar, Colby? I mean, does anyone remember that fight? Colby just fought like the soy boy beta male that he is. He's right in his assessment of Leon doesn't have the motivation, he doesn't have the heart. But again, this also applies to Colby Covington. But let's carry on.
So I could tell after that fight, he just wasn't hungry anymore. He's made too much money. I made him too much money at that press conference. So yeah, I just don't think he's motivated anymore, and he should hang him up.
He needs to listen to his own advice. This dude doesn't even want to fight. He ducked Ian Machado Gary like his life depended on it. Gary called him out. Ian Machado Gary called him out, and he shit his britches like they were going out of style. Let's carry on. Next clip. He's asked about Sean Brady specifically. By the way, you mentioned any top welterweight fighter to this guy. Oh, I don't know him. Don't want to fight him. They're not a star. They're not a big star like me. By the way, Colby Covington was never a star. As I'm recording this, 13K views on his YouTube interview here, which is absolutely embarrassing. That's not 100% an indicator of star power, but if you're not even drawing any free views on YouTube, chances are nobody cares to buy your pay-per-view either, especially when you don't win fights or you don't even try to fight. But let's listen to what he has to say about Brady now.
Is this the point you sit down and you take a look at him because potentially, you might have your targets on him, right? Because you're always going for that title. You're always going for the top of the division.
I can answer that, Dennis. I think this is Dennis. I hope it's Dennis. I can answer that. No, this is a man that has no intentions of ever fighting a top fighter ever again. But let's listen to Colby's answer.
He's still not a draw. He still doesn't draw flies to shit. So, I want to do good business for the company. Whatever the biggest and best fights that the company wants, that's what I'm on board with. If he's what's on board, fine. It's a good matchup. He's not going to take me down and submit me. It's going to be a striking fight. And as we saw in the fight with Belal, remember the racist Muhammad, we found out that kid has a glass jaw. So the fact that you got knocked out by Belal, that kind of shows the company everything that you're made of. You're not anything special. So
this dude's acting like losing to Belal is embarrassing. Belal is the current welterweight champion. Belal needed one try to do what Colby couldn't do in 3 tries, 2 of them undeserved. And he's acting like losing to Belal is some type of embarrassing loss for Sean Brady, who's now built back, went on a winning streak, dominated Leon Edwards, the same guy that Colby lost to, arguably 5-0. You could maybe give him the 5th round. And this guy then raised his hands and acted like he won after he refused to fight, sitting out 2 years for an undeserved title shot. But let's carry on. As Sean Strickland would say, I regress. He's asked about the Leon Edwards rematch. Is the Leon Edwards rematch something you would want now? Let's listen.
Dennis, about what's next for him. I'm worried about what's next for me. I'm the biggest name in the welterweight division, so.
This man fought Jorge Masvidal at the peak of Jorge's star power. They sold under 400,000 pay-per-view buys. That is actually reported. because UFC 274, Charles Oliveira versus Justin Gaethje, was reported to be the highest selling pay-per-view of the year at that point in time, and it did 400,000 pay-per-view buys. Colby Covington has the star power of an Aljamain Sterling. Okay, but let's carry on. He's the biggest draw in the division. I believe he starts with his call-outs here. Who does he want to fight, man? The welterweight division's looking amazing. You got all these great names. You got Jack Della, you got Belal, you got, Sean Brady, you got Leon Edwards, who you lost to and got dominated by. Who do you want, Colby? Let's see who he's going to call out or mention in this.
So, I'm going to get with the UFC. We're going to decide what the biggest and best business we can do. There's a lot of people chirping. You got that little kid from across the pond. Paddy's starting to chirp some shit. We know he has trouble making lightweights. So, that's a big fight we can do at welterweight. We got Chandler running his mouth. He wants to come fight for the All-American title. So, I don't know. There's a fight coming to Miami very soon. We'll see what happens after.
This man is calling out Paddy Pimblett and Michael Chandler. Two guys in a weight class below him. And this shows me it's somewhere in that small little peanut brain of his, because he is dead behind these eyes. He knows he can't beat elite opposition. He never has in his entire career. His biggest accomplishment is losing title fights to Kamaru Usman that were gifted to him. This guy is the definition of a participation trophy. And now here he is calling out Paddy and Chandler. I don't even know if he can win those fights. But the fact that he's even calling them out, and these aren't the worst call-outs of the interview. Just wait. Just wait till later. The fact that he's even calling them out tells me exactly where his confidence is. I mean, it's crazy. And speaking of projection, listen to this next clip. I mean, he's asked about MVP. Would you want to fight MVP? I thought he might indulge this matchup because it's actually a winnable matchup for him, because MVP has garbage wrestling, but MVP's fast, has good distance management, can stuff some takedowns, but I think it's a favorable matchup for Colby. He doesn't even want this fight. He doesn't want the MVP fight.
I don't know. I didn't pay attention to it. I don't pay attention to anything he does. He's another irrelevant bum. He was knocked out unconscious in the B leagues. You've never seen me laying unconscious in the UFC octagon fighting the best fighters in the world for the last.
Irrelevant bum. He's calling MVP an irrelevant bum. Sounds an awful lot like projection there as well. Next clip we're going to jump ahead to. We're going to jump ahead to him talking about Michael Chiesa. I thought he might mildly be interested in this fight as well, because Michael Chiesa is a borderline dead body. But let's listen to what he has to say about Michael Chiesa.
Sonnen system and for Team Sonnen. We were able to tell these fighters that this is the perfect representation of what you don't want to do when you win the Ultimate Fighter. Don't be.
I know he didn't win the Ultimate Fighter, but is Colby not the perfect representation of what you don't want to do with your career? Make up some WWE act, get some title shots that you can't win, lose them, and then just keep talking as you continue to lose and duck elite opposition?
Michael Chiesa, don't become a relevant bum who rides other people's meat for a.
By the way, hold up a second. Hold up a second. He meant to say irrelevant. He said relevant bum.
Become a relevant bum who rides other people's meat for a form of transportation. And I'm talking about him riding DC's meat for transportation to try and get a big fight with me. He's just not a big fight, and he doesn't do any business for the company. So
riding people's meat to become relevant. I guess maybe he did say relevant bum. Maybe that's what he meant. Riding people's meat for relevancy. This man is literally Donald Trump's Monica Lewinsky. He would get down on his hands and knees for Donald Trump. There's no doubt about that. How did he become relevant? He got a political following to back him, because nobody actually likes his fighting style. Nobody likes a guy that's gifted opportunity after opportunity because of his mouth. And he was able to seize on a political following to have any fans at all. Let's carry on. There's more.
They've never offered me the fight, and I know that's not going to interest the UFC. So I want to do what's in the best interest of the UFC. God bless the UFC. God bless Ari Emanuel, Hunter Campbell, Dana White. Love those guys with everything, every ounce of fiber in my being. So we're going to sit down with them soon, and probably when they come to Miami, and we'll figure out what the biggest and best business we can do. But I can tell you it's not an irrelevant bum like Michelle Chiesa.
Irrelevant now. So I guess he misspoke relevant. I mean, the way he was sucking off Dana and Ari Emanuel, not only would he get down on his hands and knees for Donald Trump, I'm convinced if Dana invited him into his office and said, look, Colby, We really want to give you a favorable matchup. You know, we're going to try to get somebody who lost on Dana White's Contender Series and sign him to a contract for you. But I'm going to need you to do me a favor real quick. I'm going to need you to do me a quick favor. Get down on your hands and knees. And I think Colby would blow him for a Dana White's Contender Series loser at welterweight. Super easy matchup in a main event where Colby can still act like he's a star. This guy is an embarrassment. He's calling Chiesa irrelevant. Nobody even likes this guy anymore. There used to be a fan base, a cult fan base of political, non-real, not really MMA fans, non-hardcore fans who would follow him. They're even abandoning him. I mean, 14K views on this interview. When I was looking at it earlier, last night, it had like 10K. I mean, that's insane how bad his drawing power is on free YouTube. But this, believe me, this isn't even the worst of it yet. This is not even the worst of it yet. Let's jump ahead, because talking more about Belal here, which is just hilarious because, again, Belal did what he couldn't do in 3 shots. Belal did it in 1. But he's talking about Belal's star power.
To be honest, I feel bad for the fans, Dennis. The fans are getting robbed of a high-level title fight. I mean, I don't think that pay-per-view does over 20,000 pay-per-views, so I feel bad for the UFC. These are
talking about Belal Muhammad versus Jack Della Maddalena.
The guys that you have in a title fight. I mean, I could care less, to be honest. Like, I'm the champ of the division. Anybody that fights me, it's going to be the championship title fight. You know, it's going to be the biggest fight that can be made in the welterweight divisions.
No way he believes that. But he says there's no way that does over 20,000 pay-per-view buys. He fought Jorge Masvidal, who's a bigger draw than him, and did under 400,000 pay-per-view buys. He says he feels bad for the fans being robbed of an elite level title fight. You know what? That reminds me of UFC 296 again. Every accusation, every claim is a confession. Colby Covington is describing himself over and over and over again. Next clip we're going to show you before we get into the really embarrassing call-outs that I'm going to go on a crazy rant about. I need to show you this clip about Islam Makhachev, okay? He's asked about Islam potentially moving up to the welterweight division.
Interesting to see what happens though, because if JDM wins, Islam Makhachev probably enters your division, right? And we've always spoken about, no?
He ain't coming up, bro. He's doing the same thing his daddy Khabib did. Oh yeah, I'm gonna come up and fight for the second belt at 170. They're never gonna do it. They talk and talk and talk, but they'll never actually do it. So
they'll talk and talk and talk, but never actually do it. I mean, the projection in this interview is crazy. The projection in this interview is crazy.
You know, he's just taking the same playbook out of Khabib's playbook. Oh, act like you're bigger than life and you're this pound for pound GOAT. He's not actually going to do it. If he wanted to do it, he would have done it already.
That's crazy. All he does is talk and act like a big shot when he's not going to do anything. You know, it's funny because it's so laughably embarrassing. And I want you to remember all these clips. And now we're going to get to the worst possible ones. Okay, because he's asked about Ian Machado Gary, the guy he ducked like his life depended on it. Okay, I made multiple videos about how Colby was ducking Ian Machado Gary. And real quick victory lap. Okay, very quick victory lap. When I made these videos and I said Colby will not fight him, I died on that hill. I said, listen, guys, it's not going to happen. This is his way of ducking him. And people told me, Joey, you just don't like Colby because of his political beliefs. You don't like Colby because he sucks on Trump's taint. I don't understand how a dislike for Colby would make me give you analysis saying that a fight is not going to happen, only for the fight to happen and then me look completely dumb. Well, guess what? Now it's been over a year now? He still hasn't fought Ian Machado Gary because he shit his britches, okay? But he's asked about that here, slightly, doesn't really say that much. And then he goes into who he actually wants to fight. But let's listen.
It's interesting as well. Obviously, there's Ian Gary in the division, but I know he never met your contractual offer and obligations. And then
this beta male soy, but look at his face right here. He knew Gary would beat his ass bad, and it would have been the end of his career. It would have been a really bad beating. And this question, the way he's so friendly with Colby, man, I'm letting it slide. Creed shirt. The Creed shirt. At the end of the day, I give this dude a kidney. But this is the face of a dude who ducked Ian Machado Gary. But who do you want to fight, Colby?
And then we've got Shavkat floating around in the division. If it was up to you, UFC aside and Paddy and Michael Chandler aside, who would interest you in the welterweight division right now?
So Gary Shavkat, you mentioned Gary Shavkat. He's already mentioned a bunch of other welterweight ranked fighters in this interview. He says, all right, let's forget about Chandler and Paddy. They're in a different division. Let's leave them aside. Who do you want to fight?
Was enough name value that would sort of get you excited to fight if you could choose tomorrow?
Yeah, probably one of the Diaz brothers. They're big names. They're legends of the game. So they draw attention. They sell pay-per-views and they get people excited for fights. So that's why I want to fight, Dennis. I want to fight legends. I've been world champion. I fought the best in the world for the last decade. So
this motherfucker said he wants the Diaz brothers. The Diaz brothers. Last time we heard from Nick, he was smoking crystal meth on the side of the road. Okay? Nate hasn't won a fight in years. He's not even in the UFC anymore. He's fighting in boxing matches against other washed up fighters. Okay? I think he won there. But to call out Nate and Nick Diaz, I mean, Nate Diaz is an embarrassing call out. Nick Diaz is really embarrassing. Look, he beat Jorge Masvidal in boxing. He lost to Jake Paul. His last win was the dead corpse of Tony Ferguson. Before that, lost to Leon, lost to Jorge. The last time Nate Diaz has a credible win is 2019. So probably the same time Colby had a credible win. 2019. He wants to fight Nate Diaz, who's not in the UFC, who's damn near 40 years old. So, I mean, that is it. The only thing Nate's missing, I guess Nate's missing that losing streak, that long losing streak, because Colby likes to beat up on guys who are close to 40 or 40 and on multi-fight losing streaks. So Nate checks one box. But the Nick Diaz call out, is really, really humiliating considering Nick Diaz is 41 years old. Look at this losing streak. Lost to Robbie Lawler, literally quit in the cage. Went like this, nah. Lost to Anderson Silva, got overturned to a no contest. Lost to GSP. Lost to Carlos Condit. And if you're wondering, Joey, where are these names coming from? Yeah, because he doesn't fight. He last fought in 2021, September 2021. Then January of 2015, March of 2013, February of 2012. His last win was October of 2011. His last win was October of 2011. That is 14 years ago. Comment down below, how old were you when Nick Diaz got his last win? I'm truly curious. How old were you the last time Nick Diaz won a fight in the UFC? I don't even think I had hair on my nuts at that point in time. Okay? That was 14 years ago. And Colby is calling out Nick, who's literally hanging out on the side of the road, smoking crystal meth, or what it appears to be. We don't know for sure. Looks like he has a drug issue. That's who Colby is desperate to fight. Man, he's a legend. He's a legend, man. I want to fight him. He's a legend. I want to fight legends. I've already fought the best. No, he's trying to get a winnable matchup. And Colby, I don't think the fan base has truly come to the realization Colby's on the same level as like a Nate and Nick Diaz. Okay? That's where he's heading. Maybe he's not there just yet, but he can't win a fight to save his life. And he only beats 40-year-olds on losing streaks. And the only reason he has any credibility is because people propped him up because he lost to Usman and gave him a good fight. Let's continue.
And I just did a favor for the UFC showing up on no notice. So, I want to look for big fights, not fights that do nothing for my career, not nobodies, otherwise there's just no point. So, the Diaz brothers would excite me. If Paul Felder keeps running his mouth from the commentary booth, he's going to get slapped as well. That's so self-loathing.
What's going on? What?
Dude wants the Paul Felder fight. So just to clear it up, he's asked about Shavkat, he's asked about Gary, he's asked about Leon, he's asked about Belal, JDM. He calls out Paddy Pimblett, Michael Chandler, Nate and Nick Diaz, and now Paul Felder, who's retired and fought at lightweight. But let's carry on. He goes off about Paul Felder here.
What's going on with Paul Felder, man? What's happening?
Dude, he was talking shit about me. He was saying some shit that, he's done this and that and some other shit. Hey, Dennis, I want you to go ask him next time you see him in person. Ask him about the time we were at Joint Base Langley, Eustis, the Army and Air Force Base, and he got tied fucking in handcuffs by the military police to a toilet in his bathroom because he was drunk on the base. That's embarrassing, you self-loathing drunk asshole. He must be drunk half the time he's in that commentary booth for the UFC. man, I feel bad for the UFC. They need to get some new commentators. And what better, man? I could be the UFC commentator.
I left this in there because, look, Colby's begging for a job now. Please let me be a commentator. And talk about how embarrassing that is. Yeah, man, Paul Felder got drunk years ago, and I saw him get drunk. He's self-loathing. Yeah, I mean, look at this. He doesn't. I mean, this is the most pathetic beta soy boy I have ever seen in my entire life. And one last thing we're going to look at before we wrap this video up is him going off about Paul Felder a little bit more. And again, projection.
Paul Felder done. Dennis, I make more money outside the UFC than that guy's made in his whole entire life. Like, the guy's an absolute bum. He's never done anything in the sport. He has no reason to talk shit, especially when he's never been in a main event in his life. The guy's a bum. He's gotten beaten up by everybody. He's literally been a punching bag in the UFC, and he's a self-loathing, drunk asshole. So
literally, Colby describing himself, has never done anything but get undeserved title shot after undeserved title shot after undeserved title shot. Also, Felder's not a draw yet, neither is Colby. This guy literally went into the interview and called out Paddy Pimblett, Michael Chandler, Nate Diaz, Nick Diaz, and Paul Felder. Meanwhile, he was asked about multiple top 15 welterweights. This shows you where his head is at. This is a weak beta male in Colby Covington, a soy boy. If he saw Ian Machado Gary on the street, he would run away and call the authorities. He would scream like a little bitch. He does not want to fight anyone in the top 15. The UFC needs to send him to GFL. GFL could use him. You know, he could be competitive there. He could be competitive in GFL. This was one of the most embarrassing interviews I have ever seen. And I'm telling you, Colby gives me special needs vibes where they're like playing along with this character, you know? Like, oh yeah, Colby, you're one of the greatest. You're one of the biggest stars. And Colby's like, hell yeah, man, I'm a huge star. When he's literally an irrelevant bum. It's really, really bad, guys. But I wanted to make a video because that interview was humiliating. The call-outs were embarrassing. To call out Nick Diaz, you might as well call out somebody with cerebral palsy, okay? You might as well call out somebody with muscular dystrophy. That's what you might as well do. You might as well call out somebody who's a paraplegic. Okay, you're calling out Nick Diaz and claiming you're the best fighter in the world. You're a complete and utter pathetic embarrassment. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and thank you so much for watching.